Hey guys, it's Kevin. Here's my review for The Darkest Minds, and what The Darkest Minds is essentially about is basically we center on these different teenagers, and basically it's another one of those post-apocalyptic stories. There's this virus that is broken out, and because of it, children are now basically illegal. They're now like on the run and things like that, and each of them have these powers, and basically they have to do what they can to stay safe and possibly, stop this virus from happening and take down the people who have made them illegal. And you guys have seen this 1,000 times. Needless to say, I was not at all excited for The Darkest Minds. It looked so unnecessary, it looked so derivative, and it's coming out at exactly the wrong time. We're in a time now where these post-apocalyptic YA films, they're just not really a thing anymore. After the Hunger Games, I think they just kind of died out. Divergent was a joke, honestly. I don't recall anyone that really ever told me that they absolutely loved Divergent and they loved everything about that series. That just kind of petered out, and then the Fifth Wave wasn't successful, and the Maze Runner just ended, and things like that, which that one I will say was actually successful, much more successful than other YA franchises for sure. But I really thought that'd be the end of it. I really thought that we'd be moving on from these, and apparently not. The Darkest Minds was their latest attempt, and it failed miserably because this is everything you think it's going to be. It's so derivative, it's so unoriginal, and it really does not do anything that different from the other films that I've mentioned, but we're just getting into it right now. Now, the cast in this film, I will say, is suitable. I don't think anyone was necessarily bad here. Amanda Stenbergel as our main character here, Ruby, I do think she does a admirable job overall. She does what she needed to do in this role. It's nothing amazing. It's nothing, it's nothing on like the level of like Jennifer Lawrence in the Hunger Games films. It's nothing like that. But I do think she was all right here. I do think she did an okay job. And, for the most part, I thought she was all right. The rest of the kids here don't really stick out that much, minus Skyland Brooks as Chubbs. I honestly really liked this character a lot. This is the guy who, not only is he very smart, but he's the guy who, whenever we're asking certain things that they're not bringing up or we think they're overreacting, Chubbs feels the exact same way. He always has some sort of a smart-ass remark. He actually has some really nice scenes with Ruby, and I really did like their relationship overall. I think he did a really good job here. Harris Dickinson is whatever. He's basically as bland as you could possibly get. Maya Sek, whatever. I mean, I guess they work well together overall. I guess the kids as a whole, I don't think they didn't have chemistry, because they did. I think they overall did work well together. It's just nothing really that amazing. As far as everyone else goes, I mean, everyone else is fine. Mandy Moore does what she needs to do. Gwendolyn Christie. Bradley Whitford, he's good for what he has. The rest of the cast, not really. This guy, Patrick Gibson, who comes into the film a little bit later, we'll get to him. I'll definitely get more into his character a little bit later on, but he, I thought, really was over the top here. Everything about his character, I really was not a fan of. And this guard in the film is amazing. This guard who, he always talks like this, everything he does. He always gets way up in your face like this and always just talks down to you, and that's how he talks throughout the whole goddamn movie, and it's honestly hilarious. I really loved this guard, and again, not in a way that was like amazing or anything. I loved him in a guilty pleasure sort of way. I honestly wish we did get more of him, because nobody else is acting like this guard in the movie. Everyone else is acting relatively normal, and this guard is just hamming it up so much. And I don't know exactly who played him, but he was incredible. I loved this actor, and I hope to see him in more stuff, because, if there's one thing you can't deny, is that guard was having fun, and I definitely will give him that. But overall, the acting is just, for the most part, okay. But now we get to the directing. Jennifer Yen Nelson's directing. I really don't have much to say about it, because yes, this is from the director that did the Kung Fu Panda films, but from this film, you really couldn't be able to tell, because to me, it just seemed like she didn't give a shit. It very much just seemed like she was going through the motions here. She really does not put any sort of style into this film whatsoever. It's very weak. The dramatic moments do work okay for the most part, but just her directing, it just did not really seem like she had a lot to do here. I don't know if she was just half-assing it or if Fox just like mandated her or whatever, but it just really did not seem like she had much to do in terms of the directing, and it honestly is quite surprising. This is the same director who did the Kung Fu Panda films, because nothing of that tone, nothing of that scale is in here. Nothing feels the same, and I honestly don't know why they chose her. It felt like they could have just hired anyone to direct this movie, and it probably would have turned out the exact same way. But either way, I thought her directing was really nothing that special. But that's nothing compared to the writing in this movie. The writing in this movie is easily the worst thing about this film, because like I said, I would give this film points if it actually tried to do something different, if maybe it actually tried to break new ground, and it really doesn't. Aside from a few differences here and there really is nothing that different here. Sure, the kids do have powers, but similar to Divergent, instead of them being separated into factions, they're all separated by colors, basically, and these colors determine the various type of powers that they have and things like that, and it's just not very interesting. You know, you still have the president who is very much, you know, he is supporting all of these things and he's trying to justify, you know, why this is really going on. You still have this one character that goes rogue. You still have Ruby, who's like the chosen one, and she's the one who can stop all this from happening, and she's like the most powerful of them all. You have a forced romance in there. There really is nothing that different about this movie that you haven't seen in other films, and that really is the biggest problem with the writing. And the other thing that really bothers me is that this movie, you know, in general, it doesn't try to do anything that different. It doesn't try to go into anything that is, you know, that it doesn't try to go into uncharted territory, and I think they really did mess up there a lot. But my other biggest problem with this film, besides the writing, is how rushed this movie really is. I mean, this film is incredibly rushed. Right off the bat, when we get introduced to Ruby, we get a very rushed backstory, and her character in general, I just didn't really feel went through that much of an arc here at first. And they try to do so much with her in this film. They try to make her go through so many different things in this film, and you just don't really care about her character that much. And I just did not really find her to be all that interesting. The problem is they spend so much time on Ruby that all the other characters basically do get shortchanged. Especially Maya Sek's character in this movie has almost nothing to do. I honestly can't tell you what the purpose of her character is. She just felt like that fourth person that's just supposed to be there because they had 4 people in the book. And look, I always say, you know, I know people are always worried about book-to-movie adaptations, but if you make a change that's good for the film, go for it. Because I honestly feel like they could have cut this character out altogether and the movie would have been exactly the same. Because I never once cared about this character. I really don't have anything to say about her here because, again, they give her absolutely nothing. At least with Harris Dickinson and at least with, you know, Chubbs' character, you know, Skyland Brooks' character, they do actually attempt to give them things. You know, they give Harris Dickinson and Amanda Stenberg this really bland romance. Like I said, it's bland as hell and you don't really care about it, but at least they did attempt to do something. Maya Sek, on the other hand, has absolutely nothing in this film, and I honestly did think that they could have just cut her out altogether, and I really did not see the point of her. But that's really only scratching the surface of who they really do waste here, because almost every other actor here is wasted. But then, of course, we get to who the villain is in this movie, which, I mean, given the star power, you would think the villain is, oh, I don't know, maybe Bradley Whitford, you know, coming off of Get Out and things like that. Maybe they wanted to give him a really good role. He has one scene in the film. That one scene you see in the trailer, that's literally his only scene in the movie. He has a couple, like, little things in flashbacks, but that is his only scene, like, with dialogue and such. And he's completely out of this movie throughout the rest of it. And yeah, so he definitely is not the villain. If you were looking for a new President Snow, that's not at all who he is. And he, like I said, is not in this movie at all. So, okay, maybe you'd think, oh, well, I don't know, Gwendolyn Christie is, she is definitely of pretty high star power at this point. Maybe she's actually going to be the villain here. She's in 2 scenes in this movie, and look, I would not be complaining about this if the plot synopsis did not act as if she is the main villain. The plot synopsis of this movie literally says these kids are going on the run to, run away from Lady Jane. Lady Jane is Gwendolyn Christie's character. She's literally only in 2 scenes. The way she gets defeated is so laughably bad, and I couldn't believe how wasted she was. And honestly, I don't want to hear anyone complain about Captain Phasma after this movie, because at least with Captain Phasma, they kept her around throughout most of that movie. While she might not have been the whole thing, she was in more than 2 scenes. And if you watch this film, you will definitely be apologizing for complaining about Captain Phasma, because at least in that one, she actually did have stuff to do. Here, she is absolutely nothing. She is pretty much depowered immediately, and I, again, just did not see the point of her. Like, why is she even in this movie? If you wanted to make her the villain, then you should have just stuck to it. It very much seemed like they would have done that, but to me, it seemed like the writers knew this movie was going to fail, so they tried to cram as many things in here as possible. Like I said, that romance between Harris Dickinson and Amanda Stenberg, which you just don't care about this romance, especially because when you're introduced to him, he is being a complete dick to Ruby. He doesn't seem to care about her at all, and then suddenly they force this romance down your throat. And look, I will say, for the first half of this movie, I really was not hating it that much. I thought it was just very whatever, and it's a film that, they tried, and there just really wasn't a lot to it. Then we get to the third act of this movie, and that really, I think, is when things do go downhill very fast. Throughout the film, we hear about this camp that they're going to where kids can be free and things like that. And, I thought most of this first movie was going to be leading up to them getting to that camp, and maybe they get to the camp at the end of this movie. No, that happens in the last 20 to 30 minutes in this film. Suddenly, Ruby meets up with this guy played by Patrick Gibson, who actually is the main villain of this film, who actually is the guy that we're supposed to fear. And the second this guy is introduced to, you know that something's up with him. He has this look on his face when they enter the camp. Right when he's introduced that he's definitely the villain. But not only that, that's not my only complaint. My other complaint is that, again, we've seen this before. This is just this really forced sort of romantic love triangle because, he has the same powers that Ruby does, and he can help her with, pressing the government and things like that. And we've just seen this so many times. And again, I wouldn't be complaining if this was the second movie. And this act of the film certainly acts as if we know these characters and if we care about these characters, and we simply don't. And to me, it just seemed like they knew this movie was doomed to fail, so they tried to cram as much stuff in here as possible, and it really failed horribly, I have to say. The climax here is particularly very rushed. A lot of things that happen in the final act just don't make any sense whatsoever, and it really did piss me off. I think the third act of this movie honestly did ruin this entire film, and I think that easily is the biggest missed opportunity for sure. Again, I know that there definitely was not going to be a sequel because of how badly this movie bombed, but I would at least give it points if they tried to set it up in the hopes that maybe there could be a second one, but it just seemed like they had no hope whatsoever. So they just cut it together, tried to cram it into 3 books into one, and it just really did not work overall. The cinematography here is really not that great. It is very, it's very average. It honestly at points does look like sort of like a CW show or something like that. The effects really are not too good, particularly some stuff towards the end of this movie I thought really wasn't great. The scores, whatever, there's some generic pop music in here, and it's whatever, I didn't really care about it. And the editing, like I said, the film is so lazily cut together. It just seemed like they knew the movie was kind of doomed to fail, and they didn't really try to put any effort into it whatsoever. And that's really the best way some of the Darkest Minds. Very, very low effort. It just did not really seem like many people cared about this movie. Despite the fact that in the beginning of this film, it seemed like, maybe they want this to succeed. Maybe they want this to be the next franchise. For some reason, they try to cram so much in there that there's no possible way there could have been a second one. There's no possible way that they could have actually made this somewhat of a good franchise. I mean, maybe if they would have fleshed out these characters a little bit more, maybe if they wouldn't spend so much time on Ruby and this romance that we don't talk about. You have so many actors that are wasted, like Mandy Moore and Gwendolyn Christie, who have basically nothing to do here. We're stuck with this villain that I really could not stand. There's so many plot points that just don't go anywhere. We never find out how this virus happened or anything like that, because, oh, I guess we got to explain that in the second movie. That's not going to happen, which, again, doesn't make sense to me, since to me it seemed like they didn't think the second one was going to happen, so they just lazily cut this together. But either way, this is definitely one of, I think, it is definitely one of the poorest attempts to start a YA franchise I have seen in recent memory. It really does show how much this trend has faded out, how much people really don't care about it anymore, and I think definitely this is going to be one of the last attempts we see for a long time. I don't think we're going to see another Darkest Minds for a while, given this film's, very poor box office records, which were less than stellar, to say the least. This was a huge disappointment. It was not a film I was at all looking forward to, but just in general, it did even less than what I really was expecting. And because of that, I am going to give The Darkest Minds a D+. Just skip it, guys. It's definitely not worth your time. Once again, you can definitely tell that we're in August. It definitely feels like one of those films that they just threw into theaters because, oh, nothing else is coming out, so we'll just put it there. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did see The Darkest Minds, let me know what you guys thought of it. You probably haven't seen it. You guys saw something like, Christopher Robin or Spy Who Dumped Me. You probably didn't see this one. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.